Hello everybody, and I hope you are doing awesome today. Thank you for tuning in and watching. We're doing something a little different, bouncing back after the big painting with something a little more simple. We're using watercolor pencils today. This is a large sheet of hot press watercolor paper. It's different from cold press in that you're not going to have the same texture. It's very smooth, so it's really good for illustrative styles. But you do have to really make sure you're doing water control with this because it has a tendency to go a little bit everywhere. But I'm using watercolor pencils rather than traditional watercolor. As you can see me starting off here with the yellow. We are keeping this really loose. I am sticking with the theme of working on trees now. So we're going to start off with kind of a faraway landscape and work our way into some more individual trees, but we're just having fun here. I am currently blocking in my design with the yellow, and if you've watched me use them before, you probably already know I have four main colors that I use. I have a yellow, red, blue, and a green. And I always like to start off with my yellow just because it's the lightest color, and for me it lets me block everything in without needing for it to be exactly there. You can kind of shift the yellow around, once we add the water you can fade it out and almost erase any lines that you don't want. So that's why I really like to go in with the yellow first and block everything out. And then we'll go in with the other colors. We are doing this in two parts. I originally wanted to share it with you just all in one video and do some short videos this week, but I don't know if you've ever sat down and done something and thought, yeah, that didn't take me that long, and then you're going back through and it's like, oh goodness, that was definitely going to be a longer video. So breaking it up into two parts, feel free to let me know whether or not you like that and you like being able to see the process from start to finish, or if you'd rather I edit it a little bit more, or if you would be perfectly happy to sit down and watch a 20-minute video of a painting from start to finish. Still figuring out exactly how I want to do things, so your feedback is appreciated if you feel like giving that. I have moved on to the red, and as far as the colored pencils go, or watercolor pencils, you don't need their tips to be very sharp. I'm not doing any fine lines here, just very basic movements, but you can just sharpen it with a normal pencil sharpener to at least get somewhat of a point on it. And another thing you can do if you want is I like to use an open sharpener when I'm sharpening my watercolor pencils, because you can actually put the shavings into little watercolor dishes and use that like you would regular watercolor. So just a little resource saving tip for you if you want. And right now what I'm doing with the red, and this is kind of what I do in general when I use these watercolor pencils, is the yellow gives me the overall idea and the very abstract look at it. And then I like to come in with my red and start to really define my shapes. In the middle, when I was putting this together, I'm imagining kind of more the pointed trees, kind of like your ferns and pine trees, creating the hills. And then in the center and up where I'm working right now, I'm working on some more like fluffy trees, kind of oak trees and the like. So not drawing each individual leaf, and that's why I wanted to start with a faraway view, is that I'm finding I want to figure out backgrounds for a lot of my pieces. And that's really what trips me up, is that when I want to do an individual tree, it's not too hard. I have a really good time with that. But then when I'm wanting to do the background trees, it feels like my background gets really muddy, or it doesn't really look like trees. They don't look defined enough. So I'm really trying to work on how I want my background trees to look. In this case, we're going for a very minimalistic design, and I'm just kind of very roughly putting in the shapes. I'm using a scratching motion for these trees to the side. In the middle, I was using just a very soft circular round motion, kind of imagining the fluffiness of the visual of trees that you get when you're looking from really far away. And that's just what I'm playing with, and that's part of the fun of these watercolor pencils as well, is that you can put these lines in, but once you add water, a lot of them are softened and you can move the color around. We'll be doing that in the next video. So in this video, we're just getting all of our lines in, and I really hope you join me next time, because when you add water to these, I personally feel like it's magic. I absolutely love it. It makes the colors very vibrant. All of a sudden they're popping off of the page. That yellow that doesn't look very dark, as soon as you add water to it, really starts to show up and you can actually see it, which is very exciting in my opinion. I love it. Creating just some different shapes along the lines here. I didn't want to have to stick to anything in particular, kind of defining some bigger trees. And you'll notice that as well, is that as I'm coming forward, I'm causing those shapes with both the round trees and these kind of scratchier trees to be bigger and more prominent, kind of having them a little bit more defined. Then when you move towards the background, you don't want them as big or as defined, and that's again going to create that illusion of depth without actually having to create any sort of shadows. You're just creating the visual cue that they are moving further and farther away. And don't be afraid when you're planning out a composition, even on a big piece of paper like this. You'll see I have a lot of white space that I have left, and that's not a bad thing. That's totally on purpose. I feel like at the end product, it's going to give it a very illustrative feel, and I'm almost tempted to turn these into maybe a watercolor book someday. Maybe like an actual storybook is kind of the feel that I get from these pieces when I work on them. So that's something I'm thinking about, but in general, it can feel really tempting with a white sheet of paper that you need to fill all of it in and account for everything, all the little nooks and crannies, all the way to the corners, and define all of it, when in reality, part of what is going to speak about your piece is allowing it to have that negative space, to have that white space very deliberately, because that is what's going to draw your eye towards where you've put the color and where you've put those strokes. You know, that's really defining what you're trying to say with the piece and emphasizing where you're going with it. Right now I have moved on to the blue, and generally after I've defined my shapes with the red, in my mind when I'm thinking of using the blue, it's because it is a cooler color, I'm thinking of my shadows, and I'm kind of defining the edges because I wanted a brighter spot in the middle to draw the eye towards kind of the center of my drawing. And then using the blue, and I'm just adding a lot more of it towards the edges than I am towards the center to create that effect, and going ahead and allowing it to mix. And once we add water, you can see how the blue over the red already looks a little bit purple. That effect is going to be enhanced even more when we add the water and you really start moving and blending the colors around on the page. I'm not doing as many defining strokes with this one as I did with the red. I really almost am closer to coloring at this point than I am to drawing. I just want to put the pigment on the paper and have fun with it, because this is just a very loose style. It doesn't have to be exact. You know, we're not trying to do anything super crazy here. This is just a lot of fun. It's kind of similar to my automatic drawings that I'm just going with the flow, and after I have that initial picture set with the yellow, the rest of the colors for me happen just very organically and really loosely. I feel the painting and kind of figure out, okay, what do you want to be? Where do you want the colors to go? And what do I really want the end effect to come out as? Okay, and as you see, we are doing the green and just kind of coloring it in. and I'm using a very light stroke similar to the blue, where I am just coloring in these trees. I don't want to use any hard strokes. I'm not trying to draw. I'm just putting pigment on the paper, concentrating it towards the center where I want the lighter part of the image to be, and very, very light hand as I bring it out to the edges. Next time we are going to add water to this piece and really watch the colors come alive and blend with each other, and then we're going to use marker to define the last little bits, and we will have a finished piece in 2 easy sessions. I hope you guys join me next time. As always, stay creative and stay safe out there. All right, bye.